More NFL teams miss the playoffs than make it, and while plenty of bad teams are left out, there are plenty of excellent teams who, through some confluence of events, are also left out. We're going to look at the 10 best teams who have missed the playoffs since the 1978 season. The playoff structure has changed quite a bit throughout the NFL, but 1978 was the first season that multiple wildcard teams gained entry. It was also the first season where the NFL schedule went to 16 games, which remained the standard for over 4 decades. We will be ranking these teams based on their C-score, this channel's metric for determining the complete quality of every NFL team during the Super Bowl era. There is more to a team than just its record. Sorry, Bill Parcells. As is always the case, a deeper explanation of C-score is available in the description of this video. And we will not be determining these teams based solely on their records. Otherwise, the 1985 Denver Broncos and the 2008 New England Patriots would be the top 2. They went 11-5 in their respective seasons, and while these are good teams and it was simply dumb luck for them to miss the playoffs, they don't have the C-score to qualify for this list. And since we are only starting this list in 1978, we thought we would at least post the top 10 for both the pre-merger era of 1966 to 1969 and the single wildcard era of 1970 to 1977. Now, even though this period only covers 4 seasons, there are lots of good teams being left out because making the playoffs was much harder. This list is naturally led by the 11-1-2 Baltimore Colts of 1967, but there are plenty of other notables here too. 7 of these teams were from the NFL, with only 3 from the AFL. The 1970 to 1977 list tilts right in the other direction, with 7 AFC teams compared to 3 for the NFC, and all of those come in 1970 or 1971. The criminally underrated Cincinnati Bengals of 1976 lead the way here, with the Dolphins, Oilers, and Rams each taking it on the chin with 2 appearances. It's time to get going. Thank you so much for joining us today, and away we go. We start at number 10 with the 1999 Kansas City Chiefs. At 9-7, they outscored their opponents by 68 points, led primarily by their offense. They played the 4th hardest schedule in the league and check in with a C-score of 14.896. The Chiefs had 9 straight winning seasons with 7 playoff appearances between 1989 and 1997 before a 7-9 season in 1998. They looked to bounce back in 99 and put out a good season, ranking in the top 10 in points scored with a more middling performance in points allowed. They had trouble with the close ones though, going 4-5 in one-possession games against a 5-2 record in multi-possession games. At 5-5, they won 4 straight games before dropping the last 2. And at 9-7, they lost out on a tiebreaker with the Miami Dolphins for the AFC's number 6 seed. Another season of misery for the Minnesota Vikings here, with the 1986 squad checking in at number 9. Despite a gaudy plus 125 point differential, they only managed a 9-7 record, good for a C-score of 15.208. The great teams of the 1970s now behind them, Minnesota was looking for a bounce back during the 80s. They were 3-13 in '84, but improved to 7-9 the year after, and in this season, they had top 5 finishes in both points scored and points allowed, albeit against the 4th easiest schedule in the league. Their problem this season were close games, going 1-5 in one-possession games, while putting out a stellar 8-2 record in multi-score games. They let a 5-2 record slip away, and at 9-7 in the powerful NFC, they weren't making the playoffs, finishing a game behind the LA Rams for the 5th and final seed. Fittingly at number 8, with their 8-8 record, are the 1989 Cincinnati Bengals, yet another team with a big point differential that's not reflected in their record, since he was plus 119 on the scoreboard and landed a C-score of 15.253. Just one season earlier, the Cincinnati Bengals entered the final minute of Super Bowl 23 with a lead, only to lose that lead and the game in heartbreaking fashion. 1989 feels like a bad follow-up, but finishing 4th in the league in scoring and 7th in points allowed is no dud by any means. What they couldn't do, like so many others on this list, was win their close games, going 2-4 in one-score games while going 6-4 in multi-score games. Once they went from 4-1 to 5-5, they fell behind the 8 ball, finishing last in their tightly packed division, a game out of the wild card and a game and a half behind the first place Browns. Our number 7 entry belongs to the 1980 New England Patriots. In going 10-6 with a positive 116 point differential, driven by a high-powered offense that finished 2nd in the league in scoring, their C-score is 15.431. The second half of the 70s were much kinder to the Patriots than the first half, nabbing a winning record for 4 straight years, but with only 2 playoff appearances and 0 playoff victories. Naturally, that didn't change this season as the 80s began. Stop us if you've heard this before, but the Patriots had an awesome 9-2 record in multiple possession games, but only went 1-4 in their one possession games. They also let a strong record of 6-1 slip away with a 4-5 end to the season. 10-6 might be good enough most seasons, but the Oakland Raiders and the Houston Oilers nabbed the wildcard spots at 11-5 each. Nearing the midway point, we find the 2012 Chicago Bears at number 6. They just missed a triple-digit point differential of plus 98, but their 10-6 record and strong defensive performance gives them a C-score of 15.73. In its previous 6 seasons, the Bears went to a Super Bowl and played in another NFC Championship game, so the promise of a good season this year seemed reasonable, and that promise was answered with a 7-1 start. They dropped to 8-6 in short order before grabbing wins in their final 2 games. Hey, guess what? Chicago was 3-4 in their one-score games and 7-2 in their multi-possession games. Who saw that coming? The Minnesota Vikings had a better divisional record than Chicago, so they were the 10-6 team that made it into the playoffs as the 6th seed. Up next are the 2005 Kansas City Chiefs in the 5th spot. Their 10-6 record and plus 78 point differential was driven ever upward by playing the league's 5th hardest schedule, giving them a C-score of 16.002. Keeping recent tradition alive, this was the 8th straight season where the Chiefs had a higher ranking in points scored than points allowed, coming in at 6th and 16th respectively. In fact, it was their 6th year out of the last 7 that they had a top 10 scoring offense. They're a bit of an outlier here though, maxing out their record at 8-4, and with somewhat comparable records of 4-3 in one-score games and 6-3 in multiple score games. But the AFC wildcard race was strong, and the Pittsburgh Steelers, on their way to winning the Super Bowl, grabbed the 6th seed at 11-5. Even with an 8-8 record, the best 8-8 record in NFL history, the 2006 Jacksonville Jaguars could not be denied the 4th spot on this list. They were top 10 across the board here, supplemented by a plus 97 point differential, nabbing a C-score of 16.171. A quick lesson on how fortunes can change. The 2005 Jaguars went 4-1 in multiple possession games, and they followed that up in 2006 with an even better 6-1. The 05 team was 8-1 in one-score games, but that sunk to 2-7 in 2006. The Jags were mostly stagnant all season, never winning or losing 3 games in a row. That is until the last 3 games of the season, when they dropped from 8-5 to 8-8. That made missing the playoffs even more painful, because the 9-7 Kansas City Chiefs grabbed the 6th seed, leaving this dangerous Jaguars team out by a single game. Speaking of painful, the 2004 Buffalo Bills are here in 3rd place. They went 9-7 with an excellent plus 111 point differential, top 10 finishes in both points scored and allowed, and had a C-score of 17.831. The Bills took a different path than the teams we've seen so far. They started poorly at 0-4 before settling at 3-6. They then went on an epic 6-game winning streak where they never scored fewer than 33 points in a game and outscored their opponents by nearly 23 points per game. Their final game of the season was against the Pittsburgh Steelers, who were resting most of their starters, and they couldn't get the job done. Buffalo went 2-4 in one-score games and 7-3 in their multi-score games, fitting more with the overall narrative, but that final loss left the league's hottest team a game out of the playoffs. You had to know they'd be somewhere on this list. At number 2 are the 2005 San Diego Chargers, 9-7, a plus 106 point differential, 5th in scoring, the hardest schedule in the league, and a 21.623 C-score. But, of course, no playoffs. The Chargers finished lower in the standings in 2005 than the number 5 entry on this list, the Kansas City Chiefs, but they do rank higher in C-score. Sitting pretty at 8-4, San Diego chargered their way through the last 4 games, losing 3 of them, including one to the Chiefs. They went 3-5 in one-score games against a 6-2 mark in multiple score games. And to pile on some more misery, they are the only team in this top 10 who missed the playoffs by 2 full games. To all the Charger fans out there, I send healing prayers and comforting hugs your way. You are one tough lot. We stay in California for our best post-1978 team to miss the playoffs, the 1991 San Francisco 49ers. A quote-unquote down year for this nearly 2-decade-long dynasty. The Niners were 3rd in scoring, 4th in points allowed, carried a plus 154 point differential, and had a C-score of 25.849, all with a 10-6 record. The Niners faced choppy waters to start the year, losing their first game and never getting into a proper rhythm. Sitting at 4-6, they went on their own epic 6-game winning streak to end the season at 10-6. While 10-6 was good enough for the 4th seed in the AFC, with a 9-7 and an 8-8 team also getting in, the powerful NFC made no such guarantees. The Eagles and the Niners were left out with that record, while the 10-6 Falcons got in by virtue of sweeping San Fran. One of those wins was a 17-14 game where Niners kicker Mike Kofer missed 4 field goals, including 2 from just 32 yards away. The Niners went 8-0 in their multiple possession games, but of course they were just 2-6 in their one-score games. Yes, I am a 49ers fan, and yes, this season still gives me nausea. There are a few things to parse out in this top 10. There is less than a 3-point difference between 10th and 3rd, but then we get nearly a 4-point jump to number 2, then a more than 4-point jump to number 1. The only conference or season represented twice is the 2005 AFC, where the 6th seed that kept these teams out went on to win the Super Bowl. The Chiefs are the only franchise represented twice, with the 99 team joining the 91 49ers as the only teams between 1990 and 2001 when 3 wildcard spots were available. And only the 05 team had a winning record in one-score games, with these 10 teams combining to go 24-47 in such contests, a paltry win percentage of just .338. Sometimes, without bad luck, there'd be no luck at all. Thank you so much for getting this far into the video. I've had a handful of requests for this topic. I just wasn't sure how I was going to approach the different eras. I hope I did so in a satisfactory manner. Be sure to give the video a like and some shares. Take a moment to subscribe to the channel if you've yet to do so, and ding that bell to be notified whenever a future video is released. Let me know what you think about all of this. Do the '85 Broncos and '08 Patriots belong on this list? Or are their 11-5 records masked by other factors that C-Score is adept at catching? What other teams do you think should have made the list? Use the all comment section below to sound off on these topics or anything else you have on your mind. Thank you so much again, and until next time, I hope you have an awesome day.